everyone, and welcome to the 30-Day Summit, where Russell Brunson has brought together a collection of his top 2 Comma Club and 8-figure award winners to share with you how they would literally survive and begin to rebuild their business in just 30 days if they lost it all. My name is Bailey Richard, and right now I'm delighted to bring to you a presentation with Tyler Shaule. Tyler is the Executive Director of Forest Cliff Camp, the premier Christian children's camp in southwestern Ontario, Canada. His background in education, experience in nonprofit leadership, and recent industry awards in digital marketing and online fundraising have made him an in-demand speaker and sought-after consultant for nonprofit organizations across North America. So Tyler, welcome to the summit.
Thanks, Bailey. It's great to be here.
Well, it's absolutely fantastic to have you. So let's just dive right in. At the beginning of your 30-day plan, you say that you wouldn't focus on grant applications or corporate sponsors like a lot of nonprofits do. Why do you choose the route of going after individual donors?
Well, I think the first thing you got to consider as a nonprofit is where you are in your cycle. You know, are you a startup? Are you a small nonprofit? Because if you are, you probably don't have a bunch of the records and the history that a lot of grantors and foundations really want to see. You know, they want to see a large built-up organization, and that's where you're headed. That's not necessarily where you are right now. And if anybody's ever sat down and written an application for a grant, they know that they can take hours upon hours. And you really never know who you're writing to, what they really care about. So what I prefer to do is use that same amount of time to reach out to donors, because that kind of grassroots support will create income through donations. And, you know, more important than that, it will leverage relationship to grow your opportunities to reach more people.
Okay, fantastic. Makes a ton of sense. Thanks for sharing. So your entire week 1 of this 30-day plan seems to be dedicated to about these 3 main things: goal setting, getting clarity on your messaging, and getting yourself set up on Facebook. We're going to talk more about Facebook in just a second, so let's talk about those first 2 things: goal setting and clarity on your messaging. First, how did you decide what your 30-day goal was going to be? What's a reasonable approach for a broke nonprofit?
Yeah, you know, I think for a nonprofit, what you have to focus on is getting a little bit better every single day. And a lot of nonprofits get stuck in this event cycle where they'll put on 3 large events that are money makers, you know, every year. But the problem is you work so hard, you put time and energy in, you get the event done, you make some amount of money, and then the momentum disappears. And you're left to kind of pick up the pieces, do the whole thing all over again. And it really is this hamster wheel of fundraising events. So instead, this time, you know, in thinking about a 30-day start for online fundraising for a small or startup nonprofit, I thought, you know, if we can try to get a little bit better every day, then that will have a compounding effect. Because really what we're trying to do is we're trying to build an audience by leveraging our relationships, test messages and offers, and then put that out to them. And for the goal for this, it really was, hey, how do we get started? Well, you need people to care. That's the number one thing you need for a cause, right? For a nonprofit to get any traction. So it was really an idea of building an audience, not to get them to come to an event necessarily where they do something for one night and then it's over, but instead to build an audience of them in a social network like Facebook, where you can feed content to them continuously and really begin to build a community. And from there, you know, grow and grow and grow. So the goal for this really was building a community through finding, you know, that those audience tools in Facebook that will help you find people who care about what you care about.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, but one of the things in your plan that you talk about in conjunction with that, I think, is also the messaging, which I mentioned. So I was wondering if you could provide us any tips on how nonprofits can help get their messaging really clear. I know in your plan you mentioned how this might be different than how businesses do their messaging, and you also shared a few interesting practical steps about identifying myths, aha moments, kinda like bridges. Maybe you could take a few minutes and talk to us about those things.
Yeah, and I got to give props to Russell Brunson because he's the guy that I learned all this from. So thank you, Russell. Yeah, messaging is an incredibly important part of growing your nonprofit because I firmly believe that people are emotional beings that rationalize things. So as you're able to message and tell stories, you're able to create that, that emotional connection with them. And because of that, they'll give. And the messages at the beginning are a hard thing to figure out. So what I tell nonprofits is that you're going to have to test a lot of different messages. And I focus on 3 different types, like you said. Myths, aha moments, and kind of like bridges. These 3 message types will eventually form kind of a whole thread of a story that we'll use with our offer to ask people to give. And we'll build trust and lead people to a point where they can solve a problem by giving to us to help someone else in whatever we do, whatever our cause is as a nonprofit. So for myths, the reason you want to talk about myths in your area or your cause or what your nonprofit does is because you probably need to break down some beliefs that aren't true. You need to break beliefs. All right. So a lot of people might have a belief, say, let's talk about homeless shelters for a moment. Some people might have this belief that, hey, people in a homeless shelter, they aren't doing anything. They don't have a job. They don't deserve my money. Well, maybe what you have to do is you have to start talking about the myths of people who are in a homeless shelter. And you have to start breaking these beliefs down that someone might have in the back of their mind that will stop that emotional connection and will stop them from coming along this story with you, this arc or this thread, to a place where an offer can be made and they'll respond to it. So in a myth, you're going to want to talk about things that are counter to your organization's truth. And they might be things that are, you think are held widely in culture, but are wrong. Or maybe there are, things that you can bring to the light by saying, it's actually a myth. This is our truth. So I've been working with an autism organization in British Columbia, Canada, and they actually serve young girls with autism. So one of the myths they share a lot is that, hey, autism affects everybody equally. And they say, no, it doesn't. And most autism cases are for boys, which is an awful thing, and it's really hard. But what it means is most of the autism research and autism therapy dollars in nonprofits go to boys. And they're saying, hey, for girls, there's not as much opportunity here. So the myth is autism research and autism therapy is funded equally. Well, it's not. Girls need a lot of that as well. And it's a specific issue for girls versus boys with autism. So you can see how they're talking about myths and breaking beliefs. So that's kind of the first part of it. The second is your aha moments. And this is classically in Expert Secrets and .com Secrets, what Russell would call epiphany bridges. So he's telling a story about when he learned something, or we can tell stories in great detail about when we learned something for the first time. And as we share our learning, or as we share the belief that we've formed, we can actually help other people kind of create that same belief. So this is a really great message to come right on the heels of sharing about a myth and your truth. Now you get to share your aha moment and say, hey, I noticed this. I realized this. And then when you do that, the great thing is they will have that same epiphany. They will take on that same belief. And when someone takes on a belief, they're going to be much more receptive to have you lead them into action, which in our case for a nonprofit is probably going to be asking them to volunteer, to give money, to share something with someone who needs it. And the last one is a kind of like bridge. Now, nonprofits, if you're in a nonprofit right now, you got to listen to this, because nonprofits often want to educate everybody on the planet about what they care about. And I think that's a great thing, but you got to be really, really careful. And this goes for businesses too, right? We all get stuck in that techno babble, and we're experts and we want to tell everybody else about it. Well, what we have to realize is that even though someone might want to give and be a part of what we're doing, they don't need to know every single detail, right? So what we need to do is we need to figure out similes and analogies and stories and kind of like bridges to simply explain what we do. Some nonprofits, they almost make education like a tax you have to pay before you're allowed to give. They want you to know everything about what they do before they take your money. And I'm saying that's wrong. Totally wrong. What you need to do is really simply state the problem you solve and how you solve it. That's it. And it can be, the simpler the better. And overall, with all these 3 messages, all I can say is, that's kind of a formula for what to talk about. to see what actually works, you have to test, test, test. You have to try a lot. So that's why in these 30 days, I dedicated, over a week and a half to testing messages in the best way I could think of, that it puts us in front of, a broad audience of people and allows us to get metrics on telling us what people care about, what they want to hear more about. So what I can say is with those 3 messages, you got 3 different types. You got to do tons and tons and tons and find out what your audience cares about.
That was really educational because as somebody who's been a part of several nonprofits in the past, I completely can empathize with the fact that so many, organizations want to do that education before they actually get to the point of accepting people's donations. And the reality is that in order to take people's money, you have to try to block out as many of those barriers. So I really, really like that, actually. Okay, great. So I'd love to, keep moving on in your 30-day plan. That was a lot of stuff that we all talked about in week 1. And at the end of week 1, you also mentioned how you'd be getting yourself set up on Facebook. And in week 2, you really go all in on Facebook. So you mentioned that you would set up a Facebook page for your organization, an ad account, even teaching your staff to post socially on their personal profiles. So my very first question is, why Facebook over other platforms? And then we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, I think where we are right now, Facebook provides 3 really important things. First of all, it has a really broad reach. There's a lot of people on Facebook, and there's especially a larger number of older people coming on Facebook. And as we know in kind of the world of giving across North America, the number 1 givers are those people who are age 50 and over. So that's really a demographic who gives a lot. And what we're seeing is those aged people are coming on Facebook more and more every day. So it creates an opportunity for us to reach those kind of people. It also what it does is it creates an opportunity for community and dialogue back and forth. This is not a broadcast medium. It's not direct mail. It doesn't just go out to someone and only solicit one type of response. It really creates a community. And the last thing it does is it leverages existing relationships. Facebook does a great job connecting people. And for a small or startup nonprofit, what they need to do is leverage their offline relationships to start growing their online presence. So that's why I talked in the 30-day plan about getting your staff at your nonprofit to start posting and talking about it, because that's one of the really key things. A lot of nonprofits get on Facebook at first, and it's really lonely. And it's like an empty room. They talk and they don't get any feedback. They don't hear anything, and they kind of just give up, right? And that's because they kind of just got on there and they started broadcasting. What you need to do is really build a community and leverage that community feel, leverage your offline relationships, and bring them online.
Okay, makes sense. But one of the things that you also talk about in your plan is how you really take advantage of Facebook's live video features. This is a key component of your strategy. So I was wondering if you could share any information about how you would utilize live video for your nonprofit on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm happy to share this. Now, this is something that's kind of cutting edge and really new. And it's something I'm using with a lot of my clients right now. So I was excited to write about it for this 30-day plan, because it is perhaps the best way to build rapport quickly, build a relationship, build trust, and at the exact same time, build an audience. Now, Facebook has some pretty awesome tools in the background of it. And what it does is it allows you to create audiences of people that watch a certain amount of your video that you broadcast through your page. Now, the real great thing about this is that you can create a time-qualified audience. And so that might go over a few people's heads. Let me put it this way. If people spend time with you, watching you on video, engaging with you, dropping comments and likes, if they spend time with you in video, they will spend money with you when you ask for it. Because time actually is one of those things as a human that we are really jealous of. We don't give it away easily. So if someone was watching your videos and you're shepherding that relationship and growing it, there's an amazing connection between time spent and money spent. And so what we're going to do is we're going to build this relationship, build these audiences, and then we're going to present to them an opportunity to be involved. And I think live video is just the best way for us to build a relationship. Like you and I are here right now. It's not live, but it's video. And why are we doing this? Because it's the best way for someone to get to know us, hear us, and understand us. And that's the same for a nonprofit. It can be really, really scary. Really scary. So in a lot of this strategy, I have to coach nonprofits that I'm working with to get online, to get on live video, to talk, to engage people, and try lots of different strategies. And it can be scary at first, but the ones that stick to it and do it see amazing results.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's so much of what Russell talks about, right? Creating a culture. Even whenever it's a nonprofit, it's still something that you need to do, building up that community. Okay, moving on in your 30-day plan, at the end of week 2, you get around to talking about your fundraising offer, crafting that offer, the ask or the appeal to your audience to actually get them to donate. And you say that there are 4 main components: a reason to donate now, giving them that urgency, a price point that makes sense, a thank you that imparts upon them an identity, and lastly, a donor-sized problem. Now, we don't have time to talk about all of those things, so I want to focus on the very last one. Could you explain a little bit more what you mean by a donor-sized problem?
Yeah, I think a lot of nonprofits, we have a really big cause, a really big why. And sometimes that can be really a lot bigger than the average donor we're talking to. So, my example that I prepared with here was, let's end world hunger. Bailey, go for it.
No thanks. That's too big of a problem for me to tackle. Can't do it.
It's not a donor-sized problem. That's like a Tony Robbins-sized problem, right? But not a problem you and I can solve. So I said, instead, the way you can craft that offer is, the world has a hunger problem. Cut away to a picture, a video of a small boy in Africa. This is Joseph. He gets 1 meal of rice every day. He's suffering with, diseases and issues because of that and doesn't have clean water. For $32 a month, we can make sure he gets nutritious meals with protein 3 times a day for a whole month, along with clean water for cooking and drinking. All of a sudden, we've packaged this world hunger crisis into a donor-sized problem for $32 a month. All of a sudden, it's something you can solve. So as part of that offer, which I think really is one of the classic fundraising tools that's kind of been lost in the art of online fundraising, you got to be careful how you structure things and ask for things. And the caution I'll give people is you have to know your donor really well, because your donor-sized problem can change if you're talking to a different type of donor. So if you have a donor who has more capacity to give and more opportunity to give and a passion for it, well, you could ask them for $30,000 a month, maybe to feed the whole community. So that's why it's really important to know your donor and know the problem that they can solve. Make sure you ask them directly for a donor-sized problem that suits them individually.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. And by day 19 in your plan, you actually get around to building out the tech so that people can make those donations. So you mentioned building out your donor funnel in ClickFunnels, and I was wondering if you had any tips or information that you can share with us about what that looks like.
Yeah, I'll say, first of all, it's got to be simple. And it's got to be simple to use. So a lot of nonprofits right now are dealing with, big CRMs and complicated web applications. I'm going to say to you, stop it. Get a ClickFunnels account. It's easy. And because it's easy, it means you're actually going to do this, right? In fact, in my plan, I think I put some links in there to 3 different types of templates you can use to create a donation page. What I recommend for this is an instant donation page. What you're trying to do is get people to land there and reduce as much friction as possible so that they can follow through with their gift. So I would say, make sure you make a specific landing page. Don't just put a form on a web page that's on your website, because people are going to bounce on that. People are going to click nav bar items and disappear. Make a really simple landing page, okay? No friction on it. Use as few fields as possible. Another thing you're really going to want to do is create a lot of trust. So you're going to want to reiterate with some simple copy what the offer is. And then you're going to want to make it as trustworthy as possible. Lots of credit card badges, make it look congruent to the ask you made before. Make it fast and easy to do. And then I have a confirmation page, send a confirmation email right away to let people know that you received the gift, and then follow up, shortly after that with a thank you. I think the biggest thing people can do with a really simple donor page is keep it simple. A lot of nonprofits try to get fancy. This is not your time to get fancy. This is your time to ride that emotional connection, get the gift, and say thank you to the person.
Okay, great. And anyone who's out there watching who's thinking you'd like to get a sneak peek inside of Tyler's 2 Comma Club funnel, make sure you stay tuned until the end of this interview because I'm going to tell you how you can get access to exactly that. But Tyler, now let's move on to the final week of your 30-day plan where you say you would go hard promoting your campaign using more videos, Facebook Lives, and Facebook ads. I was wondering if you had any final thoughts or tips to share with us specifically about how someone can make sure that their campaign is a success during this final push.
Yeah, I wrote down a few things. The one that I'm really thinking about right now is that a lot of nonprofits get shy at this stage. They've put together everything, they've put it out there once, and they don't want to bother people. But what they need to realize is that, people live in a noisy world. You might have put it out there once, it doesn't mean they heard it. You said it, it doesn't mean they know it. So you have to push, push, push. If you think you've sent enough email, you haven't. Send one more. If you think you've done enough live video, you haven't. Do another one. If you're sick of hearing your own voice, that's probably a good thing. Keep talking, keep going right to the end because I know people are busy and we have to catch them when they have the ability and the time to give. So just keep going. A lot of nonprofits say, oh, well, I've done my bit. It's over now. And I say, no, keep going. If this cause and this mission is that important to you, then you can annoy a couple people. Put more stuff out there and the other stop listening, and that's okay. You have to choose who you're going to lose, and the rest are going to respond to you and give, though.
Excellent advice. Thanks so much for that, Tyler. Are there any final tips or thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap up this interview?
Yeah, I'd say really quickly, I have 3 rules of online fundraising really fast. And you can find these over at onlinedonors.com, my site. But the first is that people give to people. Okay? People don't give to ideas. People don't give to other things. People give to people. You have to have a person up front connecting and talking and asking. The second is that yes ladders build trust and donor funnels lead people to action. So a yes ladder is getting micro commitments. It's getting someone to watch a Facebook Live, getting someone to comment, get someone to click to your site. It's these little wee yeses lead to a big yes. A lot of nonprofits just go straight for the big yes. Ask, give me money. Well, you got to start a little bit smaller. You got to say, hey, spend some time with me. Listen to me, talk to me, respond to me. Let's have a conversation. Those are little yeses. Now, a donor funnel, which is amazing to make inside of ClickFunnels, is that item online that leads people to action. So it might be signing a petition, it might be giving money, it might be volunteering, but you need a donor funnel to lead people to action. If you just kind of leave it up there, nothing will happen. You actually have to lead people to what you want. And the last is that get rid of best practices and only care about test practices. Now, the nonprofit world is full of best practices. You'll go to conferences, you'll hear from gurus, and they'll tell you what the best thing to do is. Well, I don't operate that way. I tell people where to start, and then I teach people how to test, because testing is the thing that matters. All of our nonprofits are different. All of our audiences are different. So the best thing I can say is with all this, with this 30-day plan, I built right into it lots of time to test, because that's how you find what works. So in this line of work, data is the real asset. The more information you've got, the better you can make your next campaign and the next campaign, and the next campaign. And like Russell says, you're one funnel away. And the way you get there is by testing a lot.
Fantastic. Tyler, thank you so much for sharing all of the incredible value that you have on today's interview. We really do appreciate it. For those of you at home who are watching and thinking that you are ready to embark on your own 30-day path to success, I have something awesome to share with you. It's called the One Funnel Away Challenge. You can learn more by clicking the button on this page and upgrading today. For your chance to work directly with a ClickFunnels 2 Comma Club coach and craft your own customized and personalized 30-day plan to success and getting your next award-winning funnel launched. But that's not all you'll be receiving. When you upgrade, you're also going to get some amazing bonuses, including a physical copy of the 30 Days book, where we've compiled all of the written 30-day plans from each one of the speakers on this event. You'll get unlimited access to the interview that you just saw with Tyler, and of course, all of the other summit speakers that are being featured. And here's my favorite part. You're also going to be getting a second bonus behind the scenes interview that I've recorded with every single summit speaker, where they're going to be showing me inside of their their 2 Comma Club funnels, actually via screen share, showing me how it is that they have set their funnels up. Truly, that is incredible content that is out of this world, and it's something I don't want you to miss out on. So make sure that you click the button on this page to learn more about the One Funnel Away Challenge and sign up today. And one more time, Tyler, thank you so much for being a part of the summit. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Bailey.